You're on the John Fredericks Show. Joining us now, a rapid-fire session. You know him. You love him. State Senator from Fairfax, Chap Peterson. Senator, always an honor to have you on, sir.
John, thank you for having me.
Now, I know you're fired up, aren't you? Because you got a lot of cool things going on. You're back at work, right? You get your law firm fired up.
I've got to be in court. I got 2 trials next week. I was in depositions yesterday, so trying to keep the home fires burning.
I know you got to churn it out. Now, boy, we got a lot to go over today, Chap. Everybody on Pins and Needles wants to get your opinion on these big issues of the day. Let's start with Major League Baseball, right? I know there's probably 3 people out there in Virginia that give a rat's tail, but I'm a Houston Astros fan. Worst team in baseball. They've lost 110 games 4 years straight. Just won 5 in a row. Is there hope?
Yeah, they're terrible.
No hope.
Is Craig Biggio still playing for the Astros, or am I living in an alternative universe of 20 years ago?
He retired 4 years ago.
Okay, all right. He was the only player I knew on their team.
He retired.
How about J.R. Richards?
Oh, jeez. That was the 70s, Chap.
Okay, all right. Just checking.
He had a stroke in 1979.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that.
35 years ago.
That was about the last time it was worth following the Astros, but anyways.
Okay, well, that about sums it up. Okay, NBA, who do you see in the finals? Who do you like?
Well, you asked me last week, and I'm going to stay consistent. I'm going to say Miami, San Antonio. The way these things, there's always a rhythm to these championship series, and the better team goes up 2-1 or 3-1, and then the other team usually wins Game 5, and Game 6 goes back. I think they'll be in Miami, and they'll be in San Antonio for Game 6. I anticipate Miami will close out in Game 6 against the Pacers. And Oak City and San Antonio, is that 2-2 right now or 3-1?
2-2.
Okay, 2-2. I still think San Antonio will win. Once they get Parker and Ginobili and Duncan, they just got so much more experience. And Oak City, gosh, a team like that lives on the 25-foot jumper, it just takes one cold night and they're done.
That's why I never pick those kind of teams in the March Madness, because, like you say, teams that live and die by jumpers, one bad night, they're gone.
Yeah. In
this kind of a situation, even at home. So I kind of see with you on that. Look, it's tough to pick against the Heat. I just can't see anybody beating them. 6 games, 7 games. I don't know. You look how
the way the basketball works is typically the team with the best player wins.
Right.
And LeBron James is the best basketball player in the world.
Right.
And he has been for the last 10 years, and as a result, his team usually wins. So I think the Heat will probably win again, but who knows?
Okay, let's go to politics. Let's see, 8:45. We're with State Senator from Fairfax, the Democrat Chap Peterson. Chap, let's go to politics for a minute. I'm going to go to the Tea Party beaten up in Virginia. A lot of people a couple of weeks ago writing them off for dead. All of a sudden they have this resurgence in Texas, knocking off 35-year incumbents like Ralph Hall. Then they knock off David Dewhurst, lieutenant governor. Had a couple of high-profile Tea Party nominees there. Are they coming back? Is there a resurgence, or is it just a Texas thing?
I'm going to say at this point it's a Texas thing. I'm not a national political expert. I know a little bit about Virginia. I think in Texas, from what people tell me, there's really 2 parties at this point, the Republicans and the Tea Party. The Democrats are just, for whatever reason, are not competitive in that state. In Virginia, I don't think the Tea Party has been successful in taking down an incumbent. They took down a couple folks last year in primaries, delegates, but sort of in the congressional primary, I don't think Eric Cantor's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, me either.
So I don't see them claiming any scalps in Virginia. But I guess the larger question is, to me, and I know a lot of Democrats run, they sort of every standard email is, oh my gosh, Tea Party, and every fundraising email mentions Tea Party. I'm glad to see people participate. I think the Tea Party on ballots has had a lot of benefits to it, and it's gotten people involved. And obviously, I'm going to disagree with them on some things. I think shutting down the government is almost always a bad idea, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that later. But
yes.
To the extent they bring people out and get them excited and get them interested in politics, to me that's a positive. So hopefully, they won't go away completely. They'll keep running candidates, and we'll see what happens.
8:48, John Fredericks Show. We're with rapid fire session Democratic Senator, State Senator from Fairfax, Chap Petersen, a regular on our show. Senator, let's get to the Veterans Administration, the scandal. You represent a lot of veterans in your district. Now we've got some Democrats finally saying to President Obama, look, dude, I had enough. This guy, Shinseki's got to get out of there. Look, Chap, you run a business. I mean, if this went on in your business, you would have fired this guy without severance and got him out of his office with a security escort. What's going on here?
Well, Eric Shinseki seems like he's had a great career in the military, and for whatever reason, it's just not working at the VA. But I think the president needs to make a change. There's way too many bad facts coming out, and it doesn't seem like things have improved. And we knew the VA had a problem 6 or 7 years ago. The best suggestion I've seen, and I would absolutely endorse this, is see if we can get Jim Webb off the sidelines and put him in charge. I mean, Lord knows he's not afraid to fire people. So I think that would be, if Obama could get him to do it, I think that would be a win-win. Otherwise, this thing is just going to drag out and be embarrassing. Clearly, when you have a situation like this, someone's got to take responsibility for it. And I think Secretary Shinseki is probably the most obvious candidate.
What a great idea. Nominate Jim Webb for that, or just put him in charge. I mean, look, he's not going to turn it down because he always serves his country in need. What a great choice that would be. I love that idea.
I'd like to think it's my original idea, but I actually saw a piece in the Richmond Times-Dispatch, I think, saying the same thing yesterday. We'll give not my idea, but a good idea.
We'll give unshameless credit to you, Senator Peterson, either way, because you said it on my show. So that's what I'm going to tweet out.
All right.
Now, look, where's Mark Warner on this issue? Why doesn't Senator Warner, get up and say, I've had enough? I mean, Virginia has the highest population per capita of veterans in the United States. Why doesn't Mark Warner get up and say, we need change? This is another business executive turned politician, ran businesses. There's no way that Mark Warner would put up with any of this nonsense in any of the companies that he ran. Where is he?
Well, that's a good question. Mark's never been one to sort of publicly break with the president. He may do so if you're in a meeting with him, or I think he's always been reluctant, even where he's disputed with the president, to sort of openly break ranks. This might be a time for him to do it. Far be it from me to give Mark Warner political advice. I mean, I'm sitting here behind a desk trying to make a living, and he's up on Capitol Hill. But I think he needs to create a little bit of separation from the administration. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think right now he's got an opponent that doesn't seem particularly dynamic, but at some point these are going to be issues, and I think he does need to create a little bit of distance on this issue and show that he's out front on it. I agree with that.
Look, if I was his campaign manager, that's what I'd be saying right now. You need to get out front of this issue. I mean, look, when you're being outmaneuvered by Kay Hagan in North Carolina, I mean, that's like a head scratcher right there. She's behind every curve on every issue known to man, and she's now behind Kay Hagan. Look, when you have people like Senator Udall in Colorado, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, his dad, his family. He got out there. He said he had enough. John Walsh, senator in Montana, probably not going to get reelected. However, the only senator who served in Iraq, he stood up on the issue. I think it just makes sense because part of what Mark Warner says is, look, I'm a businessman. I understand the way business works. I created a company. I sold it. I made millions of dollars. I think he ought to stand up, get involved, lead on this issue. I think you hit it on the head. There's just certain times where you have to be your own man, and I think this is it.
There's a larger point here, John, and one of the things that has concerned me and turned me off about politics in the last few years is people have become so doctrinaire that they're afraid to kind of cross paths or from their party leadership, and you see a lot less independent voices and independent votes from both sides of the aisle. And to me, you always have to have your first allegiance to your constituents. And you can't say, oh, my gosh, if I speak out on this, I might lose my committee chairmanship or some junk like that. Who cares?
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, when it's all said and done, is anybody going to care?
No.
So I think you're right. I think this is a good issue for Mark. And, again, Mark knows the issue better than I do, so I'm not giving him advice. I mean, to me, certainly if he was to break ranks with the president or with the administration or just get out front, I'd be the first to say I'm backing him.
Well, look, I remember when I first came to Virginia, I met with former delegate Glenn Oder, one of the Republicans that broke with his leadership on a tax increase way back when, and he told me that he got stripped of his committee chairmanship for that and basically got kicked to the curb and put on the sidelines. And I'm like, well, what did you think about that? How did you react? And he said to me, whatever. That's not why I'm here.
Right.
And
exactly.
I just thought that was such a great answer. I don't like when my son says whatever. I mean, it drives me bananas. I'm like, I hate that.
Right.
Like, don't talk to me. But I think that was a great answer. Like, whatever. Jesus.
I think, and then one of the advantages of Virginia politics is we're all part-timers. And, hey, I'm just going to do what I think is right. And at the end of the day, if that's a bad choice or the voters feel otherwise and set me out, that's fine. And if I get a committee chairmanship, great. If not, more free time. So
it's 8:55 here in the John Fredericks Show. We're with Democratic Senator Chap Peterson, rapid fire from Fairfax. Okay, Senator, let's move to Hillary. Boy, it looks like a juggernaut. She's going to run for president. The Clinton industrial complex squashing everything like a Panzer division in its path. Any challenges there on the horizon? What about Elizabeth Warren?
There's always, especially when an open seat comes open, I can't imagine that everyone's going to stand aside and no one's going to throw their hat in the ring. I mean, Hillary has huge advantages in that she has complete 100% name ID. Not to mention she ran in 2008 and got a lot of votes.
Right.
So she's got voters out there. I mean, if she just brought those people back alone, she's got it probably 2-1. The country's changed in the last 8 years. Whether that's good for her or bad, I'm not quite sure. But I think she is the prohibitive favorite. But I do expect somebody else to put their hat in the ring. Elizabeth Warren's an interesting candidate. It's funny. I would normally not sort of cleave towards a candidate like that because she's probably a lot more liberal than I am. But I will say that a lot of the reforms that she's talked about for Wall Street and on consumer issues, I actually happen to agree with her. And I give her credit for speaking up on these issues when, let's face it, all the money's on the other side of the table. So, it's good. You need to have competition. And I hope people do run and give us some choices. And, as for me, I'm not committed to anybody yet, and we'll see what happens.
Terry McAuliffe, the ethics legislation veto, it passed your chamber 40-0, passed the House 99-0. That's about as bipartisan as you can imagine. Maxter vetoes it. What did you make of that?
A little bit of a head scratcher. I'm not quite sure why that happened. I do think that the Governor's Opportunity Fund should be free from politics. I don't think that people should be making donations if they're getting these type of grants. It is a discretionary fund for the governor, so it's a little bit different than, say, if somebody comes in and lobbies me on an issue and then they make a donation and I disclose it, well, I'm just one of 140 votes in the General Assembly. I'm not in a position to steer contracts to people. The Governor's Opportunity Fund is different in the sense that the governor's office really does have discretion over where that money goes. So I felt like that was a good bill, and I think, frankly, if we had known the governor was going to veto it, we would have passed it, notwithstanding his veto back in April. But I'm sure you'll see the bill come up again next year.
All right, we're going to see it next. Yeah, we're out of time. I just got a chance for one more answer, yes or no. California Chrome Triple Crown winner, up or down?
No.
No. Okay. Heard it right here from Chap Peterson. We want to thank Senator Chap Peterson from Fairfax for being with us on California Chrome. He says, no dice, no Triple Crown. We'll see how it goes. 8:57.
Thank you, John.
We want to thank the senator, as always, for being with us. Thank you, sir.